This is Brian Tamburino, and you're listening to the Disruptive Consulting Podcast. It's my mission to help decision makers and business owners excel, so I'm bringing you some of the nation's top consultants and executives to break down the strategies that they've used to disrupt the average day-to-day process.
Who is your market?
Who is positive?
That's how do you typically reach their parents?
CEOs knew it wasn't working. That's why they just come here. And she always comes up.
I cannot say enough great things about Soho. And all right. So, hey everybody, my name is Brian Tamburino. We're here with Disruptive Consulting Podcast, and today our guest is Paul Higgins from Paul Higgins Mentoring, and we'll be talking a little bit about him. How is he disruptive? What does he do? Like, how does he help, and who does he help? So, Paul, if you want to give a quick intro, what's up with you? How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks, Brian. I've got an Australian accent, so I live in Australia, but I work in the US predominantly, North America. So normally, this is a bit of a sleep in for me. So thank you for that. I normally wake up around 6 a.m. and get into my US time zone, and by midday here, most of you are ending up for the day. But I run a business. It's under my name, Paul Higgins Mentoring, but it supports cloud consultants. So anyone that sells, consults, and implements a SaaS platform. But a lot of what I do is very applicable to all consultants, because ultimately we're just trying to solve problems for people and solve them, the quickest and the most affordable way possible. So that's what I do for a living.
So we talk about anyone that listens to this show probably knows that I'm a Zoho partner by now. But I just want to point out that Paul does not work with strictly Zoho, right? You name a few of the other types of cloud consultants that you work with.
Yeah, look, you name it. I've got from SAP, NetSuite, Salesforce, HubSpot, Monday, ClickUp. I think there's 59,000 cloud consultants that are known, the total addressable market. And, I've got people in our community across nearly all of those platforms. So, it's, the one thing I do is help cloud consultants, but I'm pretty agnostic to what platform they're on.
So you talk about, you mentioned your community. And I think it's important for people to know that I'm now part of Paul's community, and Paul, when you and I met, you helped me a tremendous amount. Just something as simple as, well, it seems simple, but it's rather complicated. Making my LinkedIn profile so much better, right? And this is one of the things that I use to demonstrate to people the value of your service. Or even just the free services that you offer, the simple things that just make you, in my opinion, such a good person to know, right? And when we talk about these cloud consultants, if we're really looking to scale this, I need people like you as part of my network. So you want to tell everyone a little bit about the LinkedIn pod? I didn't really intend on discussing that, but it just kind of came up in that new LinkedIn pod. It's hopefully going to be helpful for all of us,
Well, look, I'm sure you're listening. It's not any surprise that you give away value. People like, know, and trust you, and then they're more likely to buy from you, right? So we've been told that over and over again. But I think there's a couple of ways that you can do it as a consultant, and the way that I sort of practice what I preach. So one is having a free community, like you said. So some people have paid communities. Mine's free. And if you're doing LinkedIn outreach, you sort of it's that void. You connect with people, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, what do I do next, right? Do I spam them? You have a pitch, or it feels uncomfortable. Whereas if you can offer value up front, and i.e. Peers helping peers, it's a great way to actually get people from LinkedIn maybe into your world, right? And you're giving value. You know, you're giving them something. So that's why I have the Cloud Consultants Collective, and you could have your version of that, but it's communities where peers help peers. So that's sort of one key thing I do. Then I've got my podcasts like yours, Brian, where I've got a podcast and I'm up to about 470 episodes now. So I interview top experts and also people like yourself that have had a successful or having a successful business, and then they share their learning. So I'm constantly giving value. I do LinkedIn posts, right? So I'm trying to give as much value as possible so that people do like, know, and trust me. And then, you know, let's say 3% of those are ready to buy at any particular time. And then I've got, you know, services that come off the back of that. But I think is part of what you said around the LinkedIn pod is to be seen. Like LinkedIn, who knows now, might have 1 billion users on it. It's more than likely if you're doing B2B services, it's got your people on it. It's like, how do you stand out from the noise? And I think, you know, roughly, I think 3% of people actually post on LinkedIn, 3% of the users, right? But there's a lot of people that go on the platform. So we think a great way of you building your authority and you being seen as an expert is LinkedIn. So, you know, that's sort of the context. And then the short answer is what we do is have a group of like-minded people that support each other, i.e. they like and comment on each other's posts to trigger the algorithm. And what the algorithm then does is just share it with more of your connections. So if you've got the right audience as first connections and you do great content and you use the pod to trigger the algorithm, the chances are that you're going to be seen by more people that are going to like, know, and trust you.
And it's so important for someone like me as a cloud consultant or a small consulting firm. And the reason that I say that is because I was actually just talking to someone the other day about marketing, and I was looking, I use Zoho Social, right? So I was looking at my engagement, and we'll have like 72 views or 32 views and 1 like, and that's it, right? Or 1 share. And then I look back to it and I think like, well, it was likely that was my like and my share. So I believe that I have reasonably good content, but getting it in front of the right people, I think, is the most important thing that you just said, right? Because
And then look,
I
and the stats can be a little bit misleading. Like, you know, so you never quite know who's viewing it. So, for example, last night I had an ex-colleague of mine that's just left corporate. Now they're starting a consulting business. And they said, look, I've been following your content for the last 5 years. It's fantastic. Now I had absolutely no idea they were following my content, but they remembered me. And now when they're ready to buy, they come and you know, seek after me. So, you know, you just don't know who's watching the content. So, you know, people get caught up on how many engagements. I think the engagements is okay, but a lot of people are lurkers, right? I'm a lurker. Like, I don't always like and comment on someone's post, but it doesn't mean that I haven't thought, you know what, one day that person might be able to add value, or even today. And at Coke, I worked for Coca-Cola for 18 years, and we used to always say that you want to be in the top 3 brands in someone's mind when they go to make a decision about that category. So, for example, when someone walks into a store, they're very busy, you know, they walk in and, you know, they don't have an hour to think about, well, what soft drink am I going to pick, or what soda am I going to pick, right? You know, you know, there's 200 different versions. The chances are they just want life to be simple, and they'll think of 3 brands. And if those 3 brands are there, bang, they'll grab it, right? And by you being on LinkedIn and doing content on LinkedIn, you've got a greater chance of being in those top 3 people for the category that people are going to look for either now or in the future.
So what do you think is the most important part of having that brand recognition?
Yeah, look, I think the obvious one is consistency. Like, a lot of people want the brand recognition, but they actually don't do the work, right? So that's the easiest thing, is just show up, right? And average content will always trump no content every day of the week, right? So it doesn't have to be perfect. And I think that's the first thing. The second thing is getting in and triggering the algorithm, right? So
Right.
the algorithm, no one knows exactly what it is, but what we do see, so I might do a post and get like, let's say 200 views to a post, right? Where I just post by myself independently. Whereas if I get the support of my peers in the first hour, that post could go as high as 20,000 views. Right now, nothing's changed from a content point of view. The only difference is making sure that I get likes and comments in the first hour, right? And then
Mm.
LinkedIn goes, "Oh, okay, this is valuable content, so then I'm going to share it broader." So that's the second thing, and then the third thing is just the modalities of different formats, right? So there's at the moment a poll works really well. And the benefit of a poll is that when you post a poll, you can actually see who's voted, and then you can reach out, and you've got a reason to reach out to them. Oh, it's great to see that you, um, you know, uh,
Engaged.
voted this
Yeah.
on this. Yeah, correct, right? So you've got a reason to talk to them. So polls are great. Um, and then the other format is a slider. So, where you've got a PDF and people can actually, get value out of that. So they're better than sharing a photo as an example, or a text in a photo. So there's different modalities or formats of posts that work better. And by doing it and by seeing the stats, you'll soon work out what they are. But they're probably the three key things in summary. One is be consistent. Two is make sure that you're getting help to trigger the algorithm. The third thing is just vary your formats to get the most out of the views.
Key. I was just thinking about adding a slider the other day, and I was working with this company. Are you familiar with Kixie?
No.
So Kixie is a dialer that
Okay.
integrates a few different CRMs. So HubSpot, Salesforce, Zoho, pretty much only like 5, 6 largest. And they just gave me some PDF information on how it integrates and some of the functionality within. And it's all these are all things that I already knew, but for the purpose of sharing, right? So you know what I'll do? I think I'll actually send that to you, because I don't know if it'll be helpful, but it may be helpful for you to try to strike some type of relationship with Kixie, because like my regional rep Chuck is a really great guy. He's very helpful, and I'm sure that he'd be able to give some value to you, right?
Yeah,
There are a
yeah,
couple
and
things that sorry. Go ahead.
sorry, that's a great example where, like, you could do even a walkthrough of Casey as an example on your profile, right? So put up a video of this is how I use it, do that video, and then that, once again, that's adding value to your audience. They see you on LinkedIn because, you know, I still don't know of someone that you're about to meet. So, someone comes in like, I get pitches for my podcast. You probably get pitches for your podcast. Where's the first place I'm going to go and find out more about them?
Mm-hmm. LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, right?
Right.
It's not their website, right? It's
Right.
not their Facebook. It's not their Instagram. It's none of that. It's B2B. It's LinkedIn, right? And that's where, and people will go and look at your profile. So hopefully, your profile is helping them to make an easy decision. They've got about 2 minutes. So if you can't help them make a decision on whether you're the right person or not in 2 minutes, you're sort of struggling. And then after that, they'll go and look at your content, and they'll want to see if your content is proving that you're an expert in the area you're in, and you've got some form of engagement against your content that's validating it. So, that's
Right.
why LinkedIn is so powerful in today's world.
Right. So a couple things that, and I think you may have touched on a few of them, but a couple things that I try to ask every guest. What do you think is your greatest asset, and what is your greatest liability?
Yeah, look, my greatest asset is my network. I've ever since I started work in 1993. Yes, I shaved my hair because I don't want it to be so grey if you're watching the video. But yeah, so since then, I've basically collected names and worked out how I can help people. Right? If you think about it, it's the connecting the dots. Oh, actually, Brian, you need that. Okay, well, actually, I know someone that actually does that. So all through my career, through Coca-Cola, and in Coca-Cola, you know, most of the problems that came up at Coca-Cola had been solved by someone in the world, right? So it was just a matter of how quickly do you find that. You didn't have to always come up with your own ideas. So that's my greatest strength, is doing that. And I've got, over 4,000 people tagged in my sales CRM for expertise. So if someone comes to me and says, I need X, like Casey is an example for $1, I'll go and take that. I'll put that in. I'll put notes against it. So when the next time someone asks me that question, I'll say, well, here's 3 dialers that you could potentially use. So that's my greatest
Right.
strength. Sorry, you go.
No, I just said, yeah, right, correct.
Yeah. And then my greatest weakness, I think, is marketing. It's how do you market that, right? How do you
Right.
market the fact that you're a connector? And like there's I find that hard to market the value that you bring, because it's not always a tangible product, right? Like, you getting something and a connection that could earn you millions of dollars in the future, but you don't know it at the time. So it's not as if I'm handing you over money straight away. And that's the bit I find hardest. Like, I was a marketing director at Coca-Cola. So marketing B2C, I understand well, but often marketing myself is something that I'm not as, it's a liability.
That's shocking to me, because you seem like you're so good at marketing yourself. Even something, when you were the first person that I noticed had a video if you hover over their LinkedIn photo. I had no idea that was even possible. So that is a shocking statement.
Yeah, and I think it's, you can help people, but sometimes you just don't say it in a way that resonates with someone else, right? And I
Right.
think
Right.
that's the hard thing. So like my podcast, right? Like I do a lot of podcasts. I'm sure I help a lot of people, but it's not as if, the my phone's running off the hook, right? It's not as if like I've got that many clients that I can't take anymore. So there must be some disconnect there, and that's something that I always struggle with. I know I'm really good at what I do, but how do I make it easy for people to realize that?
It's I see the difficulty, because I think about, like, if I have a conversation with a marketing consultant, right? Everyone thinks that they have the solution, but in reality, maybe 10% of them have a solution, and everyone, maybe someone's talking about, you need to sell off of emotion, which is a good strategy in many cases, but I try to mimic some of Zoho's marketing efforts, and they don't sell on emotion. And I don't know that software is sellable, or software integration services is sellable on emotion, other than things like maybe frustration or angst or uh, overwhelmed. But I can't imagine that there's a solid list of more than 5 that people would really be like, all right, I need to drop X number of dollars on software licenses. I think that it's more about, in this case, and especially with all of your cloud consultants, this is my perspective. It's more about productivity, no?
Yeah, look, I think so my experience is Coca-Cola, right? So I was there for 18 years, like I said, worked from a rep to a director. So that's my experience. And it's a very uncomplicated product. It's sugar in a can, right? Sugar, water in a can. That's it, right? But it's very hard to sell something that's not particularly good for someone, right? And now
Right.
they've got Coke no sugar, and it's changed a lot, and they've got other beverages. But ultimately, most of their money was made out of selling sugar in a can. Now, you've got to get creative to actually sell that. So they were brilliant at marketing and brilliant at actually the emotional reasons why someone would have Coca-Cola versus what the product it was itself. And if I look at technology, it's always sold the features. And I think one of the first game changers, and the reason it's one of the most valuable companies in the world, is Apple, right? Steve
Mm.
Jobs did a brilliant job of actually selling the emotion. He didn't sell the product. Like his thing where he stood up there and said, imagine if you could have 1,000 songs in your pocket, right? It was the songs, and it was the relationships and the songs. It was the emotion of that, rather than saying, we've got this amount of gigabyte, and therefore, each song's worth this much, so you can fit, like he was brilliant at doing that. And I think a lot of consultants know their stuff so well, they get caught in what they're going to do, and they forget the fact that the client has got an ambition they want to achieve, and what's that ambition doing to them personally. Once you actually understand the change that that's going to make to them personally and what that ambition is, then the easy part is you doing your stuff, right? But so often I see people talk about themselves, they talk about their features, and they don't really connect with the person who's basically they're working for. What's their ambitions, and most importantly, what's the result? What's the feeling they're going to have? What's going to change in their life as a result of, for example, you putting in Zoho, right? Because it could be Zoho, it could be HubSpot, it could be anything really. The most important thing is what's the outcome that you're going to address. And I think, that's what I see a lot of cloud consultants, and when I did just consultants, not cloud consultants, really fall short of.
Hmm. Yeah, when I when I first started consulting, I remember my first presentation to a local networking group, and I didn't know how to sell at all. I had never been in a sales position. I was just an analyst that didn't want to work for a company, right? So
Yes.
I spent a lot of time pointing at the presentation or the television screen behind me saying like, yeah, I know VBA, I'm pretty good in Power BI or whatever, right? All of the languages that I knew, all of the software that I had worked in, the reports that I've created, I'm talking about statistical analysis. None of these people understood it, not one. And I left that meeting, and even months later, they would say, we still don't know what you do. Meanwhile, I was going there and pitching every week, right? And it took me a while to realize that it's not them. They shouldn't have to research what I do. I should just be better at delivery or helping them understand how I can help them, right? And then it's exactly it. Exactly
Yeah,
it.
there's only one thing as a consultant you've got to do, and that's be able to solve the problem better than the person themselves. That's
Right,
that's it in
exactly.
a nutshell, right? And all they need to know is, can they trust you more than themselves to solve something, right? And that's where your LinkedIn profile is. Yes, it's validating that you're an expert, but there's the Donald Miller storybook. Um, so I'm sure you've probably heard of it. If not, just look it up. He's prolific at telling stories. And I heard one of his employees on a podcast, and they were saying you don't want to be the person where you're in a party and you said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to London," right? And the person hearing that goes, "Oh yeah, I've been to London and I did this and that," and all they're doing is talking about themselves, right? You don't want to be that person in the party. And you look at so many profiles of consultants on LinkedIn, they're that person. They're talking about
Mhm.
themselves too much, right? And they're actually not talking to the person that's actually buying the service, right? You don't want to be that person where as soon as someone says, "Oh, no, I've got this," all of a sudden you go, "Oh yeah, I could solve it by doing this, 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 and this." It's like, you're talking about yourself, right? And you're not actually in the conversation and actually really understanding what the client needs. And if you go and have a look at your profile, and go have a look at mine, because I've done a lot of work to make sure that it's written for my audience, right? So if you're a cloud consultant, you should be able to read my profile and go, "Oh yeah, okay, this person really understands me." So just have a think about your profile at the moment. Is it actually written for the reader, or is it written for yourself?
For anyone listening, I took Paul's profile and copied it and made it my own. So I appreciate that. um, so I have a couple of just kind of standard questions that I ask everyone, and I want to get into a couple of. So the first, I typically ask for like a short story. So maybe an example of strategy, growth. Um, if you have anything that you think would be valuable to share with the listeners, please do.
Oh, sorry, is that on strategies on how to grow?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, I've come up with 7 drivers that I think are the key ways to grow a consulting business. So I'll just quickly run through those because they seem obvious, but not everyone does them. The first one is pricing, right? We all underprice. We've all heard it. If you tomorrow just went in and for the next pitch that you did, increased it by 20%, right? I'm sure that you wouldn't lose the sale, right? So I think, pricing is absolutely critical because you're putting in all of this effort. You don't have to work any harder if you just increase your prices. The second is running campaigns to your existing clients. Once again, we've heard it before, but you've got some brilliant relationships. You've come up with a new idea, but do people that you're currently working with know that you've got that new idea, right? And it's fresh in your head, right? Because you think, oh, everyone would know this. Actually, they don't. So, go and that new idea that you've got on a new service, make sure that you're actually selling it to your existing clients, right? The third is around referrals. So, how often do you actually ask for referrals? It's nice when they come in, but at the end of a conversation, how often do you say, hey, do you know someone that we've just talked about? Do you just know one name, right? Do you know one name that I could help? And once you break it down to one name and actually ask for that, it's incredible how many people will refer you. The fourth is around cold outreach, and that's around, I think cold outreach is a bit of the wrong term, but it's around using LinkedIn to its fullest. And as I said, I do a lot of posting. I do a lot of outreach on LinkedIn. I still think it's a brilliant way. And a lot of people say, but but I don't want to be spammy. You don't have to be spammy, right? If you've got a great profile and you tap someone on the shoulder, they're going to read your profile and they'll decide whether they're right or not for you, right? But they will do that. The fifth is inbound, which we've already talked about, so I won't double down on that. But that inbound for us is LinkedIn posting, and also for the podcast. Number 6 is one that I think a lot of people miss, which is strategic partners. So how often do you find someone that's already got your ideal client, you've got complementary services, and therefore you can benefit from that? And I call it playing wholesale rather than retail. You don't have to spend a lot of sales and marketing. So if you had, maybe 3 partners a year, they could fill at least half of your pipeline if you get the right partner. So there's a quick example. I work with a talent provider, right? Because when I'm consulting with someone, often it's they don't have the right team in place. So what I do is I go and partner with them to say, hey, you need X people? Okay, here they are. The flip side of that is they see some of their clients, they're like, they actually don't have the right strategy. If they had the right strategy, I could then put more people into their business. So then they go and say, hey, Paul, could you go and help them with their strategy, right? So it works both ways. It's a great example of a strategic partner. So think about it. And often people go, well, how do I find strategic partners? It's like who went before you and who goes after you for your clients is a great way to find them. And the last one is around paid. Now, I'll be very brief on paid because, to be honest, I don't do it. I'm looking to find experts to do it. So we've got a trial with someone at the moment. It's actually a Zoho. They've done a great job to bring leads into their Zoho business. So we're looking at ways that we can learn from that to apply it to, not just Zoho partners, but to other people. So they're the 7 things. In summary: pricing, campaigns, referrals, cold outbound, inbound, strategic partners, and paid. And most people that I meet are doing maybe little bits of some, but they're not actually doing all 7 of those.
One thing that for the longest time I did not do, and I think that I didn't do it because I didn't really understand how to do it correctly. I was part of that group that said, well, I don't want to spam, right? And then I realized that there are 2 types of people that work in cold outreach on LinkedIn. There's the one that gives you a whole sales script, and it's not tailored toward anyone, and it's immediately after they add you. So it's either a bot or just a person that's not very good at selling, in my opinion. And I had it. Then there's the other that I'm online. I'm Paul Higgins, and I see that Brian Tamburino may need me, and what can I offer, right? And this is also something that was very misleading for me when I started this, or when I started outreaching on LinkedIn, because I'm basing everything that I know off of these people that are hitting me with a script. And then I remember how much I dislike it and I don't want to participate, right?
Correct.
But it is so important to hear this and know that there is a huge difference, right?
You you don't stop sending emails just because you get bad ones, right? You know, LinkedIn's the same. Like just because you get bad messages on LinkedIn doesn't mean that you shouldn't use it for good and do it in a way. And it's no different to a party, right? Like everyone walks in a party and there's the socially awkward people. There's people that are in the corner. Like, there's someone in a pink suit that's standing out. Like there's all different varieties. And LinkedIn's the same. There's all different varieties of people that are pitching. But we take a particular approach, which has been built up from all of my sales DNA at Coca-Cola, where we were trained by some of the best people in the world, plus 11 years of running my own business, plus being trained by someone that does, Tony Robbins and other people's work. So, I've built up a whole lot of experience and do it in a way that works. So it can definitely work. I've got 200 people in our community from scratch in the last 12 months, purely through LinkedIn outreach. So I know it absolutely works, and it works for my clients. So if you are like Brian and you're like, you know what, I get some bad stuff, so I don't want to be that person. The great news is you don't. But don't miss out on a billion people, and more importantly, your exact people that you can find. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. LinkedIn, please, leverage it as much as you can.
Right. So I think a lot of us already know the answer to this, but I want to hear what your thoughts are. Um, how do you feel like you're disruptive in your industry? Because there are a lot of consultants, there are a lot of people that work in marketing and just anything, right? Helping other people, help business coach, for example. But how would you consider yourself disruptive?
Well, when I was a cloud consultant, we had peer groups that were just within the platform we sold, right? So, we sold lots of different platforms. So, but it was always just that. So for you, you're a Zoho partner, Brian, and like typically you talk to Zoho people, right? But from my experience, we're all doing a similar thing. So whether you're a cloud consultant or a consultant, the actual B2B process is pretty much the same. So I looked around the world and I could not see a community where all of the different platforms got together to talk about business. Right? There was lots of technical, and most of the technical was platform specific. So I said, look, I would have wanted that when I was a cloud consultant, right? So why don't I just go and create that? So the way that I've been disruptive is to create something that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world.
Mm.
So that's, my community, and that's no matter what platform you're on and no matter what stage of growth you're on in your business, you can get together and ask peers questions, right? So that's how I'm being disruptive. And a lot of people talking about community at the moment. And I think, it becomes, like it's like topics, right? It's like chat GDP at the moment. Everyone's talking about it and it sort of becomes a theme. I think community based is the theme at the moment. So just think about maybe how could you disrupt your market by creating a peer group or creating something that just doesn't exist, and from your end customer point of view, because everyone, like the old analogy was, often you'll trust a friend more than you'll actually trust an expert in something, right? So normally, if an expert gives you a goal, I'm a golfer. So your mate gives you a tip as a golfer, and you'll think, oh yeah, I'll try that, but you won't go and pay someone that's all they do. Right? You'd
Right.
rather get the free tip. So that I think that's where communities are really important. But that's how I'm disrupting our industry, is by creating this community that didn't exist before me, and I'm hoping that it will continue to exist after me.
Good, good, good. I'm sure you will. So a couple things. You mentioned you had an ebook, right? Correct.
Yeah. So
So
it's
you want to tell me a little bit about it? What's included? Where can people find it?
Yeah. So effectively, my ebook, it's 40 pages, but it's what I know of running a cloud consulting business, and it does apply to consulting in general, but it's got some, it's 80/20. 80% of it is, could be applied to any consultant, 20% it's cloud specific. And it just goes through three key areas. So one is getting your business model right. The second is generating that sales and marketing engine. And the third is a high performing team. So, it's there. And really what it is for you to just see, what have you got? Right. So I'm saying this is all the stuff that you need to be really successful after scaling and exiting my business. So it's my journey of that put into words. And then it's for you to say, well, okay, well, I've got all of this. It's great. Or you might say, actually, you know what? No, I've never thought of this, this, and this. So then you can add that to your to-do list to help you scale your business, and hopefully whether you sell it or you get someone else to run it. But you're not the person that's doing all the work.
It's interesting. And where can I find it? What does it
So you
cost,
can
by the way? Because I want to read it. That's pretty zoomed.
it's
I zoomed
free.
to zone
Yeah,
when
it's
you were
free.
talking.
One of my free, another one of my free assets. So it's paulhigginsmentoring.com/blueprint. And if you go to my website, which is paulhigginsmentoring.com, it'll also pop up if you're there for the first time. But yeah, paulhigginsmentoring.com/blueprint.
Got it. I will download that as soon as we get off this call. Absolutely.
And I'll get I'll get an email if you do. So I'll be chasing you if you haven't.
All right. So, Paul, this has been a blast. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so I try to keep these reasonably short. But I really do appreciate you coming on the show, and hopefully we can connect again soon. I'm sure we will. This LinkedIn pod is going to be killer. Everybody, please keep an eye out for it. Before we go, you want to tell everyone where they can find you? Just a quick summary where, if we haven't already discussed it.
Yeah, so paulhigginsmentoring.com, and it's Paul Higgins with an I. I know sometimes people say, is it with an E? No, it's HIGGINS. And if you just type in Paul Higgins within Google, hopefully I'm there somewhere. And if you whack in the word consultants, it'll definitely appear.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate everyone listening.